Sleep is proof you already trust God. You already live a life of total surrender to God. You just don't realize it because you do it every single night. Think about what actually happens when you fall asleep. You lose control of your own thoughts. You can't even choose your dreams. For hours, you're in a state of complete helplessness. And during that exact time, your body repairs itself, your mind resets, and you wake up ready for a new day. You didn't do that. You were unconscious the whole time. Psalm 127 says it plainly. God gives sleep to those he loves. Not sleep as reward for hard work. Sleep as evidence that he's the one actually sustaining you, whether you're awake enough to help or not. So the next time you think, I just can't fully trust God with this, remember, you already do. Every single night, without even trying. Call to action. Tonight, before you fall asleep, say this out loud. God, I trust you with what I can't control, starting with the next 8 hours. Let your bedtime become a small daily act of surrender, not just rest. Related Bible verses. Psalm 1270, 1 through 2. It is in vain that you rise up early and go late to rest. He gives to his beloved sleep. Matthew 11:28. Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. If you like the content, please subscribe and click the like button. Thank you. The watermelon that answered a prayer nobody thought would be answered. A church prayed for 40 days for just one sign from God. Nothing happened until the exact day after their fast ended. Someone showed up with a watermelon. A small church was struggling to finish building their sanctuary, completely out of money, out of options. So the whole congregation committed to 40 days of prayer and fasting, taking turns, asking God for just one thing. Not full financial provision, just a sign like Elijah, fed by ravens in the wilderness when he had nothing left. 40 days passed, nothing. Silence felt worse than the lack of money itself. Then, the very next day after the fast ended, another small church showed up, unannounced, bringing watermelon and rice cakes to help however they could. Someone in the room realized it instantly. That's bread and water. That's exactly what the ravens brought Elijah. It wasn't the financial gift that gave them strength. It was the confirmation that God had been listening the entire time. Call to action. If you've been praying for something and hearing silence, don't assume it means no. Ask God for eyes to notice the small, ordinary signs he might already be sending. They rarely look like what you expected. Related Bible verses. 1 Kings 1:76. The ravens brought him bread and meat in the morning, and bread and meat in the evening. Psalm 34:15. The eyes of the Lord are toward the righteous, and his ears toward their cry. If you like the content, please subscribe and click the like button. Thank you. The pastor's son with long hair who played Jesus. The pastor's son grew his hair long during a rebellious phase, the kind that could have embarrassed his father's entire church. Instead, it led to the most powerful Easter performance anyone had seen. When a pastor's teenage son decided to grow his hair long, it wasn't a small thing back then. The kind of thing whispered about in church hallways. The kind that could quietly damage a pastor's reputation. His mother had every reason to nag him about it, forbid it, fight him on it. Instead, she chose to let it go and simply trust that God was working, even in something she didn't love. Later, their church needed someone to play Jesus in an Easter play, and there he was, long hair and all, no wig required. He rehearsed the crucifixion scene over 20 times, and before the final rehearsal, he fasted, wanting to portray that moment with real reverence. He wept through it. Everyone watching was moved to tears. What looked like a parenting failure became the very thing God used to shape his heart, because his mother chose trust over control. Call to action. Think of one thing about someone you love that you've been trying to control through worry or nagging. Try releasing it to God today instead. Not because it doesn't matter, but because your anxiety was never actually the thing holding it together. Related Bible verses. Psalm 127:3. Children are a heritage from the Lord, the fruit of the womb a reward. Philippians 4:6-7. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication. Let your requests be made known to God. If you like the content, please subscribe and click the like button. Thank you. Can't you just trust me and be thankful? A young pastor broke down, crying at a rural church altar, not because of a tragedy, but because of one question God quietly asked him. Serving in a small, isolated rural church, a young pastor found himself deeply discouraged. One morning during prayer, wondering how long he'd be stuck there, with barely anyone to talk to, no clear future in sight. In the middle of that prayer, he sensed God speaking directly into his frustration, not with comfort, but with a question. Can you not just trust me and be thankful? He broke down completely because he realized his face, his words, his whole posture had been broadcasting complaint and resentment, and God had seen it the entire time, yet hadn't given up on it. That realization that God still cared enough to ask, rather than simply walk away, moved him more than any encouragement could have. From that morning on, he stopped complaining in every circumstance and started thanking God for everything, no matter how small. Not long after, he was called to a stronger ministry position. Call to action. Think of one situation you've been quietly complaining about, instead of thanking God through. Today, try saying out loud, God, I trust you with this, and I'm thankful, even if you don't fully feel it yet. Related Bible verses. 1 Thessalonians 5:18. Give thanks in all circumstances, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus for you. Philippians 2:14. Do all things without grumbling or disputing. If you like the content, please subscribe and click the like button. Thank you. Worry isn't love, it's a curse in disguise. Parents think worrying about their kids proves how much they love them. Here's the uncomfortable truth. It does the opposite. Think about it honestly. If a mother looks at her sick child and says, with a worried face, "Please don't get sick," does the child get better? Usually the opposite. "Please study harder" makes a kid study less. "Please lose weight" makes them want to eat more. "Please come to church" makes them want to stay away. Worry doesn't function like love, even though it feels like love from the inside. It functions like pressure, and pressure pushes people away, especially the people we're most afraid of losing. Here's the deeper issue. Many people who grew up with a constantly worried, anxious parent internalize the same message. I am a source of stress to the people who love me, and it echoes into how they raise their own children, or how they see themselves entirely. Call to action. Notice the next time you feel the urge to express love through worry or warning. Try replacing it with a simple statement of trust instead. I believe in you, or I'm praying for you, and watch how differently it lands. Related Bible verses. Philippians 4:6. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. Matthew 6:27. Which of you, by being anxious, can add a single hour to his span of life? If you like the content, please subscribe and click the like button. Thank you. Why the wisest man alive said your effort is worthless. The wisest man who ever lived looked back on a life of success, wealth, and achievement, and said your hard work, by itself, is completely worthless. King Solomon had everything: wisdom, wealth, power, achievement, beyond what most people could imagine. And in Psalm 127, he writes something almost shocking. Unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain. Unless the Lord watches over the city, the watchman stays awake in vain. In vain you rise early and stay up late, toiling for food. This isn't laziness talking. This is someone who tried everything the world offers and arrived at the same conclusion. Nearly everyone eventually reaches at the end of their life, usually too late to change course. Striving harder was never actually the thing that made life work. The tragedy is that this wisdom rarely gets passed down. Older generations learn it through decades of exhaustion, try to tell the next generation, and get ignored because it sounds like giving up, rather than the deepest kind of freedom. Call to action. Pick one area where you've been striving anxiously, trying to control an outcome through sheer effort and worry. Today, consciously hand that one area to God in prayer and notice if your body actually feels different when you do. Related Bible verses. Psalm 127, 1 through 2. Unless the Lord builds the house, those who build it labor in vain. It is in vain that you rise up early. Proverbs 3, 5 through 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. If you like the content, please subscribe and click the like button. Thank you. If you really met Jesus, you wouldn't need convincing. A famous preacher once said, if you truly saw Jesus, you wouldn't need to be persuaded to follow him. You'd fall to your knees and beg to be let in. So much of faith gets framed as a decision weighing pros and cons, calculating what you'd have to give up. But that framing assumes something is missing. An actual encounter with who Jesus really is. The preacher's point was simple. Nobody who genuinely meets Jesus needs to be talked into following him. It stops being a sacrifice. Success, money, status, the things people fear, losing, don't get forcefully abandoned. They just start to matter less. The way you'd naturally set down something unimportant once your hands are full of something better. This reframes a common fear people have. What if I surrender everything to God and end up miserable? The fear only makes sense if Jesus is a stranger. Once he isn't, the question itself starts to feel unnecessary. Instead of asking, what do I have to give up for God? Try asking God, let me actually see who you are today in prayer, before you ask for anything else. Let knowing him come before deciding anything. Related Bible verses. Philippians 3:8. I count everything as loss because of the surpassing worth of knowing Christ, Jesus my Lord. Psalm 34:8. Oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. If you like the content, please subscribe and click the like button. Thank you. The journal entry that changed nothing except everything. A friend asked him what new program his church had started. His answer? Nothing. I just changed. After attending a seminar on walking daily with God, a pastor met up with an old friend, also a pastor, and shared what he'd learned. His friend, naturally curious, asked, "So what new thing did your church start because of it?" His answer was almost anticlimactic. "Nothing new. I just changed," he wrote in his journal afterward. The trying to turn a spiritual insight into a new program or strategy, trying to use it to make it productive, actually missed the entire point. The whole idea was simply walking with Jesus daily, not adding another initiative, becoming a different person, quietly, one day at a time, and trusting that change to ripple outward on its own. Sometimes the most radical spiritual shift isn't visible from the outside at all. It doesn't need a new program to prove it happened. Call to action. Resist the urge to turn every spiritual insight into a project or a plan. Today, just let one truth sit with you personally. No action item required. Let becoming come before doing. Related Bible verses. 2 Corinthians 3:18. We all are being transformed into the same image, from one degree of glory to another. Galatians 2:20. It is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. If you like the content, please subscribe and click the like button. Thank you. Why fearing death reveals what you actually believe. Nobody who has died has ever come back to tell us what that fear actually feels like. But there's one thing that removes it completely, long before you get there. There's something almost unbearable about the unknown of death. We can't ask anyone who's experienced it what it's really like. That uncertainty alone is enough to keep most people quietly anxious their whole lives, even if they rarely say it out loud. But here's the shift to peace that removes the fear of death. Isn't a peace reserved for the moment of dying. It's available right now because it's not really about death at all. It's about whether you actually believe Jesus is with you today in the ordinary difficulties of your life. If trusting that Jesus is present can bring peace facing the biggest unknown any person will ever face, then the smaller uncertainties, health, finances, relationships, the future, aren't actually bigger than what that same trust can carry. Call to action. Ask yourself honestly, is there an anxiety in your life right now that feels too big for faith to touch? Bring that exact fear to God today and remind yourself, if this trust can hold death, it can hold this too. Related Bible verses. 2 Timothy 1:7. God gave us a spirit, not of fear, but of power and love and self-control. Hebrews 2:14 through 15. That through death he might deliver all those who through fear of death were subject to lifelong slavery. If you like the content, please subscribe and click the like button. Thank you. I didn't start anything new. I just changed. Most people try to fix their life by adding something new. A habit, a plan, a system. What if the only thing that actually needed to change was you? There's a quiet temptation in every area of life, faith included, to solve problems by adding more strategies, more programs, more effort, more control. It feels productive. It feels like progress. But real transformation often looks disappointingly simple. From the outside, one pastor summed up an entire life-changing spiritual shift in 5 words. I just changed. No new initiative, no 5-step plan, just a person choosing day after day to trust instead of strive, to be thankful instead of anxious, to surrender instead of control. It's almost anticlimactic, and that might be exactly why so few people actually do it. We'd rather build something new than quietly become someone different. Call to action. Instead of adding a new goal or habit this week, ask God to simply change one thing in how you respond to stress, not through a plan, but through daily trust. Track it in a short journal. What did I worry about today? And did I hand it over? Related Bible verses. Romans 12:2. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind. Psalm 37:5. Commit your way to the Lord, trust in Him, and He will act. If you like the content, please subscribe and click the like button. Thank you.